All right. So for our second talk tonight, we have Brenton Ough, CEO and founder from Touchstream, and he's going to talk on what's your data, how to identify OTT delivery issues. Brenton, thank you very much.
Great, thanks very much. Hello, everyone. Okay, so what's in your data? So mine's a little bit more lighthearted than the 2110 conversation. So apologies, you've had all the serious stuff now. Okay, what's in your data? Gold. Gold's in that data, but it's a bit locked up. And they're tiny little nuggets, the gold, and they're actually really hard to find. And they're not just specs. They are just rarely nuggets, and they're often in rivers. A metaphor we'll come back to, and so hard to catch. And sifting for gold's really hard work. So to try and get all these little specks, a lot of work, and very easy to look in the wrong place. And if you're using the wrong tool, well, you're really going to struggle. And then once you have all these specs, you've got to organize them into something that's much more useful and display them in a meaningful way. Okay, so yeah, that was the fun bit. How does this relate to streaming? So, in the current world, we do end-to-end monitoring. Anyone who doesn't know anything about Touchstream, and the current state of end-to-end monitoring is we've got pretty much all the steps in the workflow covered. You've got your content, the content acquisition, the encode, the package, the origin, CDN, and the audience tools, all monitoring those points. But there's a gap, a big blind spot between the CDN and the player, the ISPs. And we don't know what's going on there. Someone recently referred to it as the dark side of the moon. So the question is, how do we connect those dots and do something meaningful in that space? So, back to the river of gold. CDN logs, they're fabulous. They've got loads and loads of data in them. But they're pretty ugly and hard to look at. But then when you combine the data, if you extract the data in the right way, you combine it, you can make meaningful information out of it. This is like a cache-hit-miss ratio thing. But you need to know what you're doing. You need to know how to look at that data and do something very meaningful with it. Otherwise, you just end up with a whole bunch of standard generic graphs, which are pretty useless. Lots of people. I love watching people with log analytics tools, and they just send the data in, and then they just produce all these donuts and pizzas and all these sort of things, and it's look at this is fantastic. It's like, well, what does that mean? What does it mean? What's it telling you? What insight is it really giving you? Fantastic, you're creating lots of graphs. Okay, so the key to CDN logs is a bit of data preparation. And the first thing to do is to ingest all that into some wonderful tools. And there's a great tool called Hydraulics. Where's Marty gone? Here he's hiding. One of the first key things you've got to do, you multi-CDN, you've got to start to standardize that data. Everything's called something different in every CDN. Status code is just, an absolute famous one. Different case, different dashes, all sorts of different fun stuff. But then, when we're looking at video data, everyone has this... Everyone looks at things. I remember the first time I went to Akamai, and they've got that wonderful big world thing with all these spikes coming out of it. It's all aggregated data. It's not really telling you very much at all. It's very impressive to look at, but it's not telling you anything. So Touchstream, we've always been a per stream monitoring solution. Everything's by the channel, because that's how people watch. People watch a channel. They don't watch a load of channels, they watch one. So it's very important that you monitor everything by the specific channel. And then geo is very, very important, of course, as well. So what's our approach to this? Well, our goal is to help you to see the wood for the trees. And how do we do that? So we start with this data mapping. So the first thing we do, if you monitor with our standard ABR monitoring tool, you've got this standard configuration. We extract that configuration and then use that as a transform in the incoming data flow. And really it's driven by the playlist URI, and then from that we use our channel keys, our stream keys, and a few other little bits of information, including the channel name. So this actually now gives each log line a little bit of context. And of course, geolocating data, you have to use a geodatabase, and what we think is important is you geolocate the CDN edge node and the client IP address. And once you've done that, just those few little bits of enrichment, you can actually, and we have some really simple templates to do that in a couple of great tools, one Hydraulics, Amazon Kinesis, and Splunk, which is a great general purpose, probably the best of the all singing, all dancing tools. And then we turn that data into a flow. Now this is the really key thing. So we've taken these flat log lines and we've actually turned that data into a flow. And it's from the left, it's the CloudFront, wonderful CloudFront node. And then we've chopped it into countries, into the edge node locations, into the actual edge node, and this is the most important bit, the edge node and ASN. So how is each edge node performing with each ASN? That's the really important stuff. And this is by channel. So we're looking at one channel at the moment. Now, that's the rolled up view. So if we see a problem, and you can actually obviously easily see here that in this flow, we've got the main problems in Ireland. We've got some poorly performing nodes there. And then what you can do on those little ones is you can double click on them and get more data, see what's actually causing the underlying problem here. And we can see from this that the cache miss ratio has got too high just for one ASN. Actually, it was Poland, sorry. My eyesight's not very good. In Poland, one of the ASNs is not performing well from that edge node. So you've really narrowed down and pinpointed where the problem is within that wonderful flow from the CDN egress to the player. Yeah. And then we've built into this dashboard really simple stuff. So we're collecting KPI. We're actually getting the summarized data from the customer side, and then we're storing that in our database, and then allowing you to do a quick visualization. So we're really only storing the KPIs, and then you can do a quick 24-hour history. And then the real great trick is that we can allow you to link back to your source data. So even though we don't keep the source data, we build a link into our dashboard that allows you to link back to it. And really what you see there, there's a little, the little bit highlighted in blue in the search there is where the IP address range is, the 3 octets star. So now you've narrowed down in your millions of lines, because remember, CDN logs, you're going to get, it's roughly a log line a second or two per viewer. So there's a lot of log lines there. You've narrowed it right down to just an IP range in Tokyo in this instance. Now the interesting thing is how we've architected this to be both secure and cost effective. So on the secure side, we've taken the approach of we don't actually ingest the logs. We give our customers quick switcheroony. Yeah, it's a bit better. So the CDN log data flows from CDNs to the customer. There's this wonderful line. You can see the line in the middle there between customer and Touchstream. CDN logs flow to the customer's log analytics solution. We just inject a little bit of a summarization engine there, typically a Lambda function that's triggered on a cron tab type thing to summarize that data and pull out KPIs. The important thing about that is by summarizing the data and just sending raw summarized data to a shared bucket, which we then pick up and process, we're removing all the PII. So we've got no personally identifiable information. We just know how many hits there were per, and we summarize it in those little buckets in a very clever way and correlate all that data together. So that summarization happens on the customer side drops the summarized data, which is cleansed of everything personally identifiable, into a shared S3 bucket, which then another Lambda function picks that up, processes it, and turns it into a visualization data, and stores it in the Touchstream virtual NOC database. Now that it's stored in a very efficient manner, already pre-formatted visualization, we can do things really quickly and really concisely. So it's very cost effective because we're not ingesting the logs, and very secure because we've scrubbed it of all the PII. Okay, so here, if the gods of the internet work, they have. There we go. So, all right. So now we're looking at this per channel, and we've just got quick little spark lines of what the cache hit ratios were and error ratios and whatever. And then when we want to drill into something, we click on it, and that's that channel, that's that tree view. And you can see the whole view of everything flowing for that channel. And we've added a couple of filters and things like that, so I can exclude things like, at the moment, I don't want to look at the dash stuff. I wanted to get rid of a country. So you can, anything that's in the tree will be in the filters. You can filter them out, and it shrinks the tree down, so you can focus on specific areas. The other thing I want to do is just give me high throughput. I don't want to see the low throughput stuff, and you filter the tree down to something more manageable. Now when I want to look at something, I can use that double click functionality and look at the metrics that are there. Now we've also created several classes of metrics, and we can create multiple classes depending on what the requirements are. In this case, we've used CMCD as the other metric. So we're actually collecting CMCD data at the same time, well, as part of the logs, and we're formatting the CMCD data, which is the future, believe me. Now, you can also expand all the tiles out to see all the data, shrink them back down. I've forgotten what I do next. Look at the history of a tile. That was the bit where you look at the 24 hours history of any specific thing, and that's got all the metrics in it there. You can look at just a list of the metrics. You can also compare two nodes. So here I just select two edge nodes and show the history of those, and actually you can just see the two nodes. So usually you look at a good and a bad, and you can look at what the difference between two edge nodes, or two nodes that were in the same country that should have been serving similar amount of data but are not. So a bunch of different things you can do there, and then the great thing is the launch back into the raw data, back into the Splunk data in this case. And now we're looking at the log lines that we just filtered for that one edge node, which was NRT 57. So we just add that in context sensitive into the data, so that when you select it, you're going back to just look at those log lines. Once you're in whatever your log analytics tool are, you can look at the various data in a different way, just using the raw power of log analytics. But of course, this is not, we don't have this data. That's launched back into your own environment. And then you can, graph data. I think I love graphing cache hit miss. It's my favourite thing to do. Well, it's one of the most important things in this, particularly when you're looking per stream and per edge node. It's the most common cause of a problem is excessive cache misses. So that's a way of launching all the way back into the data and then being able to troubleshoot at a deeper level. So you've actually narrowed it down from millions of lines, just the few lines you look, or 100 lines that you might be interested in, and then use the power of the log analytics tool that you already have. Okay, that was the demo. And then okay, so yeah, what should you do now? Okay, start looking for your gold. I don't know where I got that picture from. No, but seriously, plan to enable CMCD. So I'm really curious, who is already implemented or is implementing CMCD? Or is somewhat serious? Yes, actually, Dan, I thought, yes. I know you guys are, but others? No? Jesus, we've got to push this more.
Why not?
Yeah. Why? Yeah, that's a good question. Why not? Seriously, it's going to be a huge amount of value. It's not going to replace audience metrics, but it is definitely on the way.
If I don't know the 4-letter acronym for CMCD, what would that be? And what is that data?
It's not even. Yes, it is. Common Media Client Data. Yeah, it is. Yeah, it does say there. Common Media Client Data. So do you actually? Yeah. So does everyone know what it actually is? Yeah. So it's similar to your. Yeah. Dan, you know, you can explain it. You probably know it far better than I. But it's basically from the player. If the player is CMCD enabled, it writes into the request line. It writes on the log line as query parameters or headers. But I think everyone uses query parameters because it's easier to pass it through. Adds query parameters which give you things like what's the player's current buffer length, buffer starvation, and a whole bunch of metrics that you typically would expect from an audience monitoring tool like Conviva. It's writing those into the log line so that when you actually get the logs, you've got all that data as well from the CDN logs. It actually adds unique session. If you've enabled the player correctly, it'll add unique session IDs, and then some of the more forward-thinking audience tools like Mux have already created a unique session key between the two of them, so that you can actually join the Mux data with the CDN CMCD data, and now you can really start to troubleshoot really deeply, and that's going to be the next addition that we're going to add to this part.
Yeah, just to comment on that, we kind of identify that as well, and now we're taking the content ID and session ID from CMCD and getting that ingrained in the Conviva data as well.
Yeah,
just to lock that in.
Yeah,
so
it's a fair bit of work. I know, and it's a fair bit of work. I know your guys did a lot of work on the Shaka player, I think it was, to actually make that actually work. But it's going to be paying off big dividends in the future. So it's very, very valuable stuff.
So as like, I'm assuming that's the specification behind it. Does it define what these query parameter key values are?
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
There's a defined list of query parameters. There's pieces of work going on at CTA Wave to extend that. Sorry, I'm part of that thing, and I just sometimes I mean, it's
do
important
other things
though,
right? Because there's
calls.
a lot of pieces in the middle, right? SSAI and stuff where like these query parameters might get dropped off or unintentionally used as a cache key or something like that, right? Like
you've got to enforce the rules. Basically, that's why CTA Wave have taken it on. There is a working group that is discussing those, and we discuss them quite frequently. And it's hard work to get another one added. You've really got to justify why you need another one added. But I tell you that one of the interesting ones, which the CDNs will be picking up, it's NOR, next object request. So in live streaming, this is great. It gives you an opportunity. It gives the CDN an opportunity to prefetch the next chunk, right? So it's going to make live streaming much more efficient. So that's a fabulous one that they added. Sorry, yeah.
I'm just a curious engineer when I see architecture diagrams and like the shared S3 bucket thing.
Yeah.
Is that like people are happy with that? Is that you know?
Yes.
It seems like a weird way of doing it to me. But
well, it doesn't necessarily have to be that way. We describe it that way. We've got a lot of flexibility. What we're really more interested in is getting the data from the customer side to our side, and the shared S3 bucket is something people can easily get a grip on. And remember, it's summary data, and it's shared between two parties, them and us.
And like, what would the bandwidth look like for a typical customer? I mean, how much data is going in there, and is it like, does your Lambda fire every time somebody updates it? And
yes, it does. It's a non-insert Lambda, but you only run the summarization every minute.
Okay.
So we're getting however many channels you've got. I'm trying to remember exactly how we break it up. We summarize 7 times to allow us to get the flow, and which we create on-the-fly correlation keys that flow through that. Right. We summarize 7 times, and then we put it back together on our side. So you're getting seven inserts per channel, and they're quite big.
And
blocks.
At some point, somebody is saying like how much retention they want, right? Yeah. And is that affected? Is that the size? Is that the bucket where it gets stored?
The shared bucket is transient.
Right. Okay.
Totally
so that's
transient.
only basically used for the RPC calls, basically.
That's it. It gets dropped there, and as soon as it gets dropped there, it gets picked up. So it's actually it can be a 1 minute. But yeah, we also can use SQS or something like that. So far, people actually like the S3 bucket because they can get their head around it. That's it. And you have to put security around anything, and as long as it's secured between the two parties, it's good enough. And yeah, believe me, the simpler something is. I did read a great thing on the cost of architectural complexity, in which it's very high. And yeah.
I have a question about the visualization, the node tree that you had stood up. Have you thought about the inverse of that, where maybe a penalty box experience, where the only thing that becomes present is what's affected or impacted?
Yes.
Is there any way for the operator to do that today?
Well, yes, you can get those filters there. You can say things in error, with the error threshold. So it would strip out of that tree. So on that one there you're seeing, anything that's green would be stripped out. Yeah. And yes, we have a lot of other penalty box ideas as well for a few other things that are associated with it. But we love the penalty box idea. We are not big fans of mosaics that show every single channel. We think that's stupid. Penalty box is always the way to go. Okay. Actually, I did kind of. Yeah, no, that was pretty much the end. As I believe. Oh yeah. So start doing your CMCD. Start dashboarding it up, and remember the key things that basically the majority of your OTT issues are you've already got the data there. You just have to pull it out, and that's the important thing. And it's not just the pulling it out; it's doing it in a simple way that allows you to do a simple visualization. And what we're driven by are operations. Our customers, Touchstream customers, are always the 24/7 knock operators who are sitting there with their 88 cups of coffee at 4 in the morning, looking at things. And they have told us specifically, we do not want to have to think. We want to look at it, and we want the visualization to just tell us, just hit us smack bang in the face. So we try to keep everything as simple as possible, and then we hide we put the data behind it for when you need to drill in, but when you're looking at stuff, it just should leap straight out at you. So that's our approach to it. Yeah.
So what kind of data are you guys shining a light on that wasn't originally covered through other products or whatever? Like what part of the data stream? I know you guys are talking about ISPs and it's the dark side of the moon, but I mean, what does that like really provide people other than it's showing you a layout and like maybe some specific pops or things, but like is there been any specific customer wins or things that like people have come back and been like, that's amazing, we would have never been able to figure that out?
Yeah, well, okay, so the product gets released next week. So we haven't got all the customer wins yet, but in our early looks at it working with customers, we are finding that basically CDN tuning is a problem, that they haven't actually tuned their CDN the right way, and therefore unexpected things are happening. So for example, we are seeing unusual behaviors of some in a very specific region, edge nodes that are all sitting next to each other. 2 of 4 are taking all the load. Why is that? And then the other 2 are having terrible cache miss ratios because they're not serving enough. So 2 are overloaded, and then 2 are not loaded, and therefore having cache misses, and they're therefore impacting customers. So we're seeing potential misconfigurations are probably the biggest thing that we're finding, and that's the quick win.
Yeah, I like that because that's the kind of data that would maybe just get generalized, right? And you would never see anything specific.
Well, that's right. If you got 4 nodes, 2 doing really well and 2 doing really badly, and then the average of that comes out, oh, it's okay, not too bad. Yeah. Or and worse, if you've got 2 out of 10 that are bad, then it's always going to look good, and it's not.
Hey, Brenton, we have a question from Emil on the live stream. Emil is asking, are you also using CMCD to collect more data and extract some of those KPIs? I don't know which KPIs, but
so we've done a CMCD Lite at the moment. So we're just collecting it by edge node. We are specifically not collecting data on a session ID. We're going to have to see where that goes, because that kind of, it starts to edge us into that grey area of the thing we're trying to avoid, which is the PII. But if we don't really know how the session ID is related, then maybe we could do it. But you know, we're very much a customer-led company, and we think at the moment adding the lightweight CMCD stats on there that are going to give you things like, particularly like buffer starvation. So we want to see the relationship between cache misses and buffer starvation. And what's the impact? So it's basically between the raw sort of standard CDN stats and the CMCD stats, also average bit rate as well. But we haven't got enough data at the moment. We need more out in the wild to do it. But average, what is the average bit rate being served? And then actually start to ask the question of why. Why is it lower than we think it should be? But buffer starvation, I think, is probably the most important one when combined with cache miss. Yes. Yes, we will know that. Yes, it will be. Yes, I think we'll be talking a lot more to the CDNs, yeah, because we'll be exposing some things, and hopefully they will be due to misconfigurations that the customer has done, not other reasons. But we'll see. We'll see. Yes.
Yeah. So. From the player side, obviously we passed this information. Buffer starvation, I agree, is the most important thing for correlating to CDN logs. Am I understanding this right? That, I mean, to me, there's no real way to get a per user under ISP level information like CMCD back and then correlate it to CDN logs without people sending CMC data in, right? Is that
no? There's not.
There's no other thing, and so we're kind of coming full circle. It's just funny because we started with streaming on, well, before with real protocols and stuff, but we started with Flash Media Server that was sending it knew everything about what was going on in the back end. It would burst, it would throttle, it would send out information, make ABR decisions, and then we switched to HTTP streaming, and all of that was lost. And for the last 10 years, I've been advocating we have to do a two-way communication. It feels like CMCD is that to me. That's why we bought in so hard to it. Ultimately, the question for you is it valuable? Should we continue going with it? I know you've already stated it. And is there anything missing from CMCD that you want to see in there?
I think I'm going to pass on anything missing. I want to do a bit more research, but I just think at the moment, I think there's an additional part that needs to be added to doing CMCD stuff, and that's distributed tracing, which is another thing we're working on at the CTA Wave. And I think with distributed tracing, and that's actually going to link back to the penalty box idea, you're going to be able to identify things from a CMCD perspective, which is still a little bit broad, and then you're going to be able to use distributed tracing to tell you why. What was the path this is getting a slow. It's actually more important on a cache miss than it is on a hit. On a cache miss, why was it still so slow? Distributed tracing will tell you the path back, and that's going to be the thing that opens your eyes as to where the problems are really occurring from. CMCD is more what's the effect that's happening. It's not really telling you the cause. We can approximate it with, as I said before, with the cache miss ratio, but when you add distributed tracing on top of that, and I haven't really dug into the CMSD as well. I think there's going to be some additional things there. So I think it's less about adding more to CMCD, it's combining a few of these interesting technologies together and interesting standards that when you actually aggregate that information, you can use it in an interesting way to really dig into where the causes of the problems are.
Perfect, thank you.
Can you walk me through the onboarding experience for the customer? Like, how does a prospective Touchstream customer onboard? They've got all these disparate elements. Is there a workflow? Are they providing you ARNs? Like, how are you discovering the signal path?
Yeah, really, really good question, which I think everyone is going to be separate. It's a bit of, we're not doing this for every little customer. This is really for the bigger customers, the very, very large things. It's not an easy task. You've got to have you've got to have your data workflow already. Well, you don't have to, but many customers have a data workflow existing. For example, Dan has got theirs using hydraulics, or whatever. So we've actually built a summarization engine in collaboration with hydraulics to pull that data out. We've got a very generic standard approach, which is a Kinesis data analytics module, which will be used, purchased in the market, very much like what Switch Guys are doing. Very, very much, purchased in the marketplace. There's a deployment things, and you fill in a few things, and you do this and you do that. Yeah. So it'll be very similar to what they did. I must get the recording of that so I can copy it. But it will be that. That's what we really want for as many people as possible, to be able to do it through marketplace and just basically hit the configuration pieces along the way. There is a bit of work to do. We don't imagine doing this to thousands of customers. We tens to 100 maximum that we'd be doing this for. It's a bit of work, but it's not huge. It's not as big, it's not massive, but it is a week of hands-on work to do it. Okay. Right.
I already kind of know the answer to this one, but I figure we'll cover it. So with the onboarding work, is this, you guys are more anticipating your customer base to be the 24/7 linear OTT kind of channels versus one-off events? I know you guys were leveraged during the Super Bowl and things like that, but kind of edge cases on that front, right? Like these are maybe the World Cups, things like that, but not quick one-off events just because of the onboarding workload.
Not initially, but that's where we'd like to get to. We have a few more other ideas as well. We're going to be we're sort of doubling down on data products, and so we're going to be doing things like for server-side ad insertion as well. So things where there's large volumes of logs where it's very painstaking to pull out the tiny little nuggets of information in there that really require sort of high-speed summarization and analyzing the summarized data to get you back to where the real problem is. Yeah, I think we will be continuing to make it easier and easier. We've already got now to do the first hydraulics one was a heck of a lot of work. To do the second one is not very much at all. And it will continue to get simpler and simpler and simpler. Hopefully one day to just pure one click and we're done. No worries. Great. Thanks very much.
Thank you so much. It was great. And that concludes our night. Everyone online, thanks for coming out. And I'm glad we got one question from online. That shows there's people out there. Cheers. Thank you, everybody.